today that Edgbaston has been turned blue in honour of the former England captain and the great fast bowler Bob Willis, who took over 300 Test wickets, including that heroic spell of 8 for 43 that helped win the historic Headingley Test of 1981. And although he retired from the game way back in 1984, Willis became a cult figure in retirement as a commentator with the BBC and Sky, of course, especially on The Verdict. But Bob died in December 2019 after being diagnosed with prostate cancer. And Blue for Bob Day began last year here at Edgbaston, raising awareness and funds to help fight the disease. Now, this is where I'm crossing my fingers slightly. We're joined by two of Bob's former England colleagues, two great characters of the game, two great friends of mine, Jeff Miller and Alan Lamb. And I know what you two are both like. You're going to behave yourselves, aren't you?
How long have we got to behave ourselves? How long were you doing this for?
I'm giving you 10 minutes to behave yourself.
Okay, I can manage that.
It is lovely to have you both here. And I didn't read the last part of that sentence because both of you have had prostate cancer treatment in recent times too. Yeah. And you're both, because first of all, you're both looking really well.
Thank you, Angus. Are you looking for a bottle or something?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm just being honest. You're looking fabulous. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, let's talk about Bob Willis.
Yeah.
This is the ground where he pounded in, of course, for Warwickshire and for England many times.
Yeah.
You've toured with him, you played with him, you played under him when he was captain.
Absolutely.
You'd have worked with him, of course, subsequently. Where do we start with Bob the character? Do you think people generally who didn't know Bob actually have any idea really of what the real character of Bob Willis actually was?
The onlooker or the spectator, I don't think, with all due respect, don't understand what we call dressing room humour. And it's dressing room humour is childish, it's vitriolic,
yes,
it's pathetic, but it's just funny. And you say things like that, and Bob was a perfect example of it. But his humour was deep, but he was honest and straight as well, So when he was discussing cricketing matters, if it was something that went against what he thought was right, he'd let you know. He'd tell you, He didn't try and divert and go around corners. He'd let you know. So he had this very, very deep sense of humour, but he'd also got a lot of knowledge about the game as well. So it worked on both fronts.
Yes, and they joked on Sky about him sort of revving up the chainsaw, scything everyone down on the Verdict. But was that Bob Allen, really?
No, not really. No. But I think that was just Bob, showing people that I'm going to get stuck in, because everyone I think who didn't know Bob thought he was quite dour,
yes.
But he was so funny. He had such a dry sense of humour, and I think you may have played in this game. 82-83 tour to Australia, and there was a little tinge of grass at the Oval. You remember Adelaide?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Me, Beefy and David Gale said, I think we better stick him in, Captain. 400 later, he says, I won't be asking your opinion again. You remember?
I do remember that. But people... Again, I don't think necessarily saw that the humorous side of Bob. He was like he's in a trance when he was bowling.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Heading 81, he was like he's sort of blank, wasn't he? He went into his own world.
Yeah, he did.
So on.
He did.
But yet, Bob away from the actual field of play would be a different character to that.
Well, he could visualise situations happening, and then create, as he wanted to do, the humour out of it with quick one-liners, and then move on from it. So you didn't really understand. It wasn't an anecdote he was talking about or a situation. It was just a quick one-liner, and that was him. Yes. And then you had to actually work out where he was coming from, what he was doing on this one, and you worked out whether it was a humour line or whether there was a seriousness about it as well. But he knew what he was talking about. Of course. He knew it. Yeah. He knew it.
And you're so right. When he bowled, there was nothing else around him. He just concentrated.
Absolutely.
And he came there. And I remember, playing under him. He had walked back to the mark, and Beefy would go, we don't need that short leg, we'll move him. And next minute Bob comes thundering, and guy nicks it to third slip. There's no third. He said, where is it? And he just got both of them. He was just there. And for me, when I came in 82 to make my debut, he was our captain, and you know, he was the one who brought me in and said you're part of the team and everything like that. So for me, he was just magnificent, really. And especially when we went away on tour.
Yes.
You know, he was the man. We just loved him.
There was a great story. I've got time to tell you this.
You certainly have
great
all the
story.
time of the world.
And I did it at the function we did last night. And it was the truth. So we played, I can't remember the year, it was Derbyshire. We played against Warwickshire in the Sunday League at Derby. And this was the days when Derby used to be a race course. Okay, so you've probably played there.
I remember it well.
And there's one big bath. There's one big bath where they used to wash the horses.
With not a great deal of affection, if I'm honest with you.
But anyway, and both sides used to climb into this
They
bath.
did, yes.
So there were 16 people in this, when we've just beaten Warwickshire by about 50 runs or 51 runs in a Sunday League game. And the Goose, as obviously we all knew him, the Goose has come in and the bath. And he's just looked at Andy Lloyd and he said, "Oh, Lloyd, a question for you." He says, "Dusty here," which is, my name. He said, "Dusty has just bowled 8 overs for 10 runs. And you've just blocked him. Can you explain why?" And Andy Lloyd goes, "Yes." He said, "I can explain why." He said, "Because Dusty got a wicket in his first over. I saw him as a danger. So I felt that we had to make sure that he didn't do any more damage to the side." And the Goose said, "All right, okay, I understand that." He said, "Let me just get this right. You've just let Jeff Miller bowl 8 overs for 10 runs and left the rest of us to score 12 and over off Michael Holding. Is that right?" And you've got two sides in the bath.
Full inquest going on.
The water was going up. It was brilliant. But was that a serious statement or was that a humour statement? You had to try and work out which it was.
It sounds like there's a bit of both in there, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That was the man. That was the man.
What about the fast bowler? I was telling the story earlier on, Alan, you might have been driving in. I don't know, there's 2 people I've seen who have got test wickets doing a Bob Willis impersonation. Because it was just our age.
The Gooch, he'd be one of them.
No, actually, I don't think I've seen him get a test. I haven't seen him get a test wicket. I've seen him get a test wicket with it.
Did you? I didn't know you got a test wicket.
Yeah,
It was horrific.
I should have got a couple more. Those Australian umpires. Remember Alan Border? I had him plumb at Perth.
You wouldn't have made. You ran so far in Calcutta. You wouldn't have made it back again to do another one. But it is that sort of action. The pumping of the arm, the great bend. I mean, tell us yours, because I've told it once, and I'm pretty sure I got it right.
There was nothing in the game, Calcutta.
Yes.
A newspaper had blown over, and Phil Edmonds was at mid-wicket. He was reading the paper. And
in Hindi, upside down.
They gave me a bowl, and in I came from the side screen, pumping the way Bob did. I put a jersey in so just a little bit of a pouch, and in I came. And Prabhakar was the batsman.
Correct.
And I ran in, and as I bowled, I let this ball go, and I fell in a heap. But I peeled as I went down, and the umpire gave him out. Well, the Indians erupted. You'd never... And Richard Ellison bowled 22 overs, I don't know, for 33, I don't know how many maidens. And he went off with a bad back, and we got back to the hotel. And I walked into his room. I said, "You see, Ellie, if you bend your back, that's what you get." Oh, he wasn't very happy.
Well, from my perspective, I was 12th man for that game, and Richard was actually lying in the bath. He had come off with his injured back. He was lying. He's bowled his boots off. He's lying there, and this noise went up, and he said, "What's going on out there?" And I went out and looked. I saw Lammy, arm pumping, running in from catching this LBW, and I went back had to break the news to poor old Richard that Alan Lamb had just got a wicket doing a Bob Willis impersonation. But we all, and Alistair Cook was Ellen we saw, of course, a little trap down the leg side. But we all copied it, didn't we?
Yeah.
As kids, it was just...
Yeah, it was the action to copy,
right? Where did it come from? Anyhow, where did this pumping of the arm come from and everything else? This big bend in the run. I mean, it was very unusual.
But he was a natural runner as well. He used to train.
Yes,
I know he had knee problems or whatever. So he put a lot of effort into the training factor, and the training factor then went into the bowling action. The pumping in, and so if he could get the momentum going with the run up.
Oh, so he's kind of going with
absolutely.
the
It's a momentum thing. So it aided the pace that he bowled at, and it was more than lively.
Well, I was going to ask you that. What? Because you'd have faced him in county cricket.
Yeah.
Well, I think even Bob would admit he didn't play as much county cricket as perhaps Warwickshire members might have wanted.
No.
I mean, I think Central Contracts would have suited Bob, wouldn't they? But if he'd played Test cricket and not much county cricket.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But come on, what pace was Bob? And he was very tall as well.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, Bob got into the 90s.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Oh, easy.
Oh yeah.
And when he got it right,
Yeah.
Everything, just he had to have everything right. If he got his action and his run up and everything, he was on.
It was pace and bounce.
Yeah.
It wasn't swing.
No.
And there wasn't a lot of deviation in or out of it. It was pace and bounce, but it was a variation on lengths. That's where he got the. So what Lammy's saying is quite right. It hit the 90 miles an hour kind of area, but changing lengths and changing
But you see,
not just the pace factor. It was all of it.
If he had bowled flat out for Warwickshire, he would never played for England.
No, of course.
Because he looked after his knees and that. And
Yeah.
I remember 82, this fitness training he brought us all into, trying to make Botham and Cowan. They went and got a bottle of water in a cab, threw it over them and came jogging back in, in Brisbane. I mean, Bob, what am I doing? These guys.
But you were a serious player of fast bowling, Alan. There's all those hundreds you got against the West Indies. So as a batsman, what were the challenges that Bob Willis would have given you then?
Well, as Dusty was saying, Bob did angle it a little bit, bowled a little bit wide of the crease and used to angle it in. So you had to work out where your stumps were. And when I played quick bowling, I never got behind the line, because if you got behind the line and the ball bounced, you were gone, because you'll be up there. So you always had to stay the inside of the ball, so you could cut and you could pull. And I think that's the big thing about facing quick bowling and watching the ball, because I think now the days where so many people get hit, they just duck into the ball and they don't watch it anymore.
Why didn't you tell me that while we were playing? You never told me, you never mentioned that too. Just let me get on with your own game.
We're talking to Jeff Miller and Anna Lamb here as we're remembering Bob Willis and talking prostate cancer as well. You were both on the tour of Australia when he was captain, weren't you, in 82?
Yes.
And that was... I mean, what was there anyone else who could have been captain? I mean, it's so unusual to have a fast bowling captain. Although having said that, we've got Jasprit Bumrah here, and you could say Ben Stokes.
He's got massive experience, hadn't he? And he knew the players. He knew what the players' capabilities were, and he'd got captaincy material. He knew what he was trying. And you were in Australia, and he'd got the experience of Australia as well, not only as a country, but as surfaces, conditions, everything. So I think all that was taken. I don't know, I didn't make the decision of who was going to be captain, but I think all those things were taken into consideration when that decision was made.
But looking back, and we talked about this character who was so in the zone when he was bowling. I mean, was it really difficult for him to therefore keep an eye on the sort of things that you would normally have?
I would think he probably was, actually.
Yeah,
he probably was.
Especially having both of them in the side.
Well, anyway, this is... Geoffrey always denies this story, of course, of the run out in New Zealand when Boycott was playing. Were you on that tour?
I played in that game.
Right. So come on, the definitive story. It's England against New Zealand.
Christchurch.
Yeah, Mike Brearley is not captain because he broke an arm in Pakistan.
He was in Pakistan, and Geoffrey he captained in the last test in Karachi. And then went to New Zealand as captain.
Okay, there's an opportunity, a possible opportunity, if England fared positively for a result in this test match. Geoffrey is building a platform, as we'd call it, putting it politely. Okay. Now the story goes out that Bob...
There's pressure on here, Lammy.
There is
pressure on this question.
You're going to have to run with this one.
Because in a minute...
I was with him yesterday and he told the story.
My phone will come up with a Geoffrey Boycott in a minute if this is wrong. Because I've sat and watched this many times with Geoffrey.
Oh, yeah.
So the word is from within the camp that Bob, vice-captain, decides something's got to be done.
Yeah.
And that Geoffrey Boycott, brackets captain, should be run out in order to get the game moving a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Who's going to do it? IT Botham is sent out to do it.
Well, we needed two batsmen to go out there, and I think Derek Randall was one, if I remember, and Botham was the other. To actually, increase the scoring rate.
Yes.
So that's why they were upped in the order, I think.
Right.
Right.
So,
Now carry on with your question.
so looking at the video of this, both of them arrives, pushes one, I think of you and Chatfield, to point or thereabouts.
Yeah, backward point.
Calls, yes, no, wait, oh, sorry.
Looks underneath the arm.
Yes,
yeah.
and Jeffrey is done by some distance.
Well,
now,
the phrase was apparently that you might have to go and run him out by the 6'6" Warwickshire
vice captain, fast bowler.
Yes. And Ian Botham said, well, I think it was supposedly said that he's played nearly 100 test matches and I've played 4.
Yes.
And the reply was, well, if you don't do the job, you won't play your 5th.
Right. Well, this
And I think that's what I'm not saying that was said.
well, that firms up the evidence.
Okay, let's hear Sir Geoffrey come back.
Well, no, he'll be on in a minute. So then, Jeffrey's indeed run out. He's captain.
Yeah.
And again, I understand. I wasn't there, Jeffrey. Only you were.
Yes, I was.
That the run-out batsman in question, they went and sat in the dressing room with a towel over his head. And that the vice captain had to make the decision about the declaration, and then England then won the game.
I think that sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about
That's
right.
what I've heard.
But yeah, okay.
Well, and I was there. Thanks very much.
Well, there we go.
But I wasn't in the changing room at the time.
But that sounds. Is that typical Bob? I mean, just sort of say, "Come on, we've got to do something like this." You know, this is how we're going to win this game.
Well, that's the point. I was just going to say that.
Yes.
You've just said it there. Bob his thoughts were winning games of cricket, and irrespective of who the person was who actually created the win, that didn't matter. We had to go and win the games of cricket, and many times it was him who actually created that win, Bob himself, by his performances. But his focus and his thoughts were on how can we win this game.
Yes.
And obviously you've got a 5-day process in Test cricket, so he'd work out how they could win it. And this was a situation that was cropping up, because if we didn't do something rapidly, because we'd only got one session between tea and the end session to create enough to actually make a declaration to win that test. But what is also got to be mentioned is that we'd just played in Wellington and lost in Wellington in a 3-match series, and then the following match was in Auckland, which is normally a very flat wicket, so that looked like it's normally a kind of a draw test, even though it's a draw test.
Yes.
So it was so vital that we won this game. So there was so much emphasis on that last session to create enough runs to give us time to be able to bowl them out on the last day.
Well, thank you for clearing that up, Jeffrey. What I'll do, when Jeffrey rings, I'll just give him your number.
Oh, okay. I can see he's already got it.
He might just ring you direct. He'll miss out the middle.
Well, I can believe it, because, you remember when we used to bat 100 overs?
Yeah.
And that was the end of your innings.
Yeah.
We played Yorkshire at Northampton, and Sir Geoffrey scored 195 overs.
Nicely played.
And Jackie Hampshire, or John Hampshire, was captain. And he came out, he made everyone block they didn't score another run. They played the 5 overs out. In what
This is not to have a go at Jeffrey Boycott at lunchtime.
But I thought
Thank you, Lemmy.
it's probably going to be true, the story.
we can only. There was only one person who was there,
Okay.
and that was Jeff Miller. So we'll take his.
But talking
his word for
about
this.
Bob as a quick bowler, he never said anything to anyone. You remember?
No.
He used to have that stare, that real stare, man.
Not nice.
And
Yeah.
and you remember when he ran out Dyson at Sydney?
I do.
I mean, he wasn't in the frame at all.
Wasn't in the picture.
In the picture.
No, he wasn't.
And and he never said anything to her. He stared at the umpire. And he didn't go mad and throw. He just was so cross. Right.
Because he was given not out.
Given not out.
I see.
This
But
was the first ball of the innings.
Yeah.
Right.
Mel Johnson was
First ball of the game.
following morning. Sydney Herald. There's the stumps flying out the ground. No Dyson.
Yeah.
And I went up to Mel and I said, "Great decision." He said, "Oh, he had already passed."
It was the other side of the picture. It wasn't this side. It was the other side.
Can you believe it? And Bob, I remember that hair was up. I mean, I thought he was going to flip. And no.
Nothing.
He never said anything.
That actually, because he got runs. He got
100 and bloody...
That decision, the first ball of the game, cost us. Cost us that game.
He'd run past. I love that. So 1982, Melbourne then.
Yeah.
Now this is it, because I remember exactly where I was when I watched Miller take the rebound. It's one of Henry Blofeld's finest pieces of commentary, actually, because that was all a bit tortuous. You know, England on course to win the game. Norman County, but
70. It was a non-bouncing Melbourne pitch.
Right.
90. They had to get.
It was and there were a lot of LBWs because it was just getting wrapped on the pad. LBWs.
Australian umpires giving English people LBWs and vice versa.
Both.
Right.
Both. Okay. Yeah. They had to.
Yes.
You know, it wouldn't bounce off the stump. So consequently, that was happening, and they got to the stage where they wanted, I think, 70 odd off the last day with just Tomo and AB
Alan Border, who was totally out of form.
Yeah,
out of form.
And Beefy had given him in
his
Duncan
bat, his second bat.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Just to say, you know, and he said, Beef, this is a really nice bat. And we said, what are you doing? He gave him a great bat.
Yeah, both of them gave Alan Border his bat.
Yeah. Second. He got.
Yes.
In those days, you took 2 bats on tour. Now they take 22 bats on tour. But he took 2 bats and he said, "Here, you want to be using this and come and work with Duncan Furman." So anyway, he got to his 70 odd.
So last pair together.
Yeah.
Tomo and Alan Border.
Yeah.
And Bob Willis made the decision to put all the field back but we've seen it today.
Yeah.
When Border was facing him because he's out of form and he won a bowl at Jeff Thompson, and it got horribly close.
What Tomo did, he just took it on and had the look. It just went according to what he wanted. So all of a sudden we were giving these ones and Tomo was getting the runs.
Yes.
Fortunately, from his point of view, fortunately, because he wasn't playing like a batsman, he was playing like a number 11, but it was just coming off for him. So it was getting closer and closer and closer. And the reason people say to me, you caught that rebound catch. Well, I played 34 tests and I'm remembered for one catch in 34 tests, basically.
That's about right, actually.
I know, thanks. But what happened was Bob Taylor, because the Knicks were falling short of slip.
Right.
Because there was no bounce in the wicket. Right, so Bob said, and it got to about wanting 10 to win. Bob said, "Look, the ball's got to carry to slip, and if it does, and we're too close and we drop it, then so be. But if it doesn't carry, then we're going to lose the game." He said, "So I'm going to go up 2 yards." So Bob Taylor went up 2 yards. Chris Tavery went up 2 yards because he was second slip,
right.
And I just went up 1 because I'm just behind the one. So what happened when he nicked the ball off Both, and it was a fairly new ball. I think it was only about 5 or 6 overs old. The new ball.
Both, give me that ball.
He did not bowl Both at that stage.
Really?
He brought him on to bowl. With it. So we were too close as slips, and the ball flew off the bat to Tav. Fortunately, it went through his hands and it hit him on the shoulder and just bobbled up behind him, and I took the catch. If his hand had been like 2 inches, if the ball had been 2 inches higher, it would have gone through his hands for 4, we'd have lost the game.
Wow.
So the game was won by virtually 2 inches, the fact that it actually hit him on the shoulder.
Amazing?
Yeah.
Do you still live that moment? Can you still see it? Is it still there in your mind?
Well, yeah.
It's an extraordinary moment, wasn't it? I mean, it's one of those.
But people say to me, "God, they won the Test match." But the realism of it all is the fact that we still lost the series.
Yeah.
Because we went to Sydney, the one you're talking about now, and we only drew that. We drew the match, so we lost the series 2-1.
Yeah.
And also what they did is Trent Bridge, no charge for the crowd to come because the game was at 1 wicket.
Yeah.
And there must have been 70,000 in Balanchistan. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It was packed.
Yeah.
They just came in. And also there was a run out. Easy run out, and Gunnagool ran into me. You remember? I don't know what he was doing on the field.
It was somebody was injured, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was 12.
And he came on.
Yeah.
And he ran into me, and they were both stuck in the middle of the bloody.
Oh, that's
wicket.
right. Yeah, yeah, I do remember that now. Yeah.
Bob looked up to the heavens.
But was it getting a bit tense in Melbourne? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, sort of reality of this on, really, consuming Bob. I guess as captain.
Not dissimilar to the Test match against here. It was here, wasn't it? When they wanted what was it, 2 or 3 to win?
That's right. Yes.
Very, very similar
Both of them,
situation.
yeah,
Yeah. When Army got.
Yes.
Yeah, the last wicket was it? I think
Casper. Yeah.
Casper at 3-2.
Casper
Yeah.
down the leg.
So
side.
very, very similar. And that was an edge on the edge job,
it
wasn't
was.
it?
Well, we're talking about Bob, and I did mention. Well, there's some the figures that have been released today. It's the number one diagnosed cancer in men.
1 in 8.
It kills one man every 45 minutes. 2,000 men in this stadium today will get prostate cancer. These are the bare facts, and you've both had it.
Yeah.
I mean, and people listening to you, they don't know, but know what gregarious, outgoing people you are. Let's hear your stories then. I mean, who
I'll start. Shall I
went
start?
first?
Yeah,
Go
he
on.
got it first.
Well, you have your blood test. You have this man test.
Any symptoms?
Ish, yeah, symptoms-ish, because your PSA is just rising a little bit, and you just keep
You
an
go
eye
to
on
the
it.
toilet a lot. You start urinating.
Yeah,
a
it's
lot.
it's the release,
Yeah.
the weeing release, and out in night 2 or 3 times
Right.
a night, and then
Getting
you
up in
go.
the night.
Yeah, but then you can't go. There's nothing coming out or whatever. So there's obviously something wrong. There's a problem. So you go and have your test and see what your PSA, what your blood level. So and then you start to find out by biopsies. You have a biopsy, and they find little things there, and the method and what they do now is absolutely fantastic. They can pinpoint and specifically find out how serious it is. And on my occasion, they said, "Well, we found a couple of things there." I had a 12-piece biopsy. I took 12 bits out to me. They said, "There's 2 of these things. There's a bit there, but I think it's not serious enough to do anything about it at this stage. We'll do a constant surveillance on it, and we'll keep blood testing to see." And then the blood went up again, still having the same problems at night as Lammy will have, exactly the same. And then,
Have they mentioned cancer at this stage?
yeah, they said there were 2 little bits of things in there, but it was controllable. And then I went again because the blood had gone up again, and then I had a 36-piece biopsy, and then they found, that wasn't pleasant.
No.
That wasn't pleasant, in fact, I was having these things done, I still try and find, as you know me well enough, try and find some humour out of it and whatever. And a surgeon, who was a very good fella, said, "Are you all right, Jeff?" I'd had breast operations. I said, "Well, I'd rather face Michael Oldham with no pads on than go through this." Anyway, the nurses were looking, "What's he mean by that?" But anyway, I then had the 36 weeks. Found a couple of other things, and they said, "Right, you've got triple option here: constant surveillance, radiotherapy, or out. You've got to make your decision." So I went away and I talked to 1 or 2 of the lads, John Childs, Charlie Childs, who's been through it, and Nick Cook, who didn't. And all of a sudden you realise there's quite a few players who've been, and you're oblivious to it to start with because you never know. And then you just fired these figures at me. As soon as you are part of it, you then understand just how prevalent this is. And it's 1 in 8.
Yeah.
1 in 8. So all of a sudden, I had it done. I had the operation.
Go back a bit. So
Yeah.
what did they give you a prognosis for each of those options? Like surveillance, they say what would
Absolutely.
your length of time might be.
Absolutely.
If you only did that.
Yeah.
I mean,
They give you the 3 options and on what the relevance of those options were.
Yes.
And then you
doing
had to
nothing.
you got to make your own decision on that.
What was surveillance?
Surveillance
in
is
terms
just the continuation of just
Monitoring.
on your blood. Yeah,
Yeah.
monitoring your PSAs and that
in terms of life
But that was no good
expectancy.
to me. I didn't. From my point of view, I didn't think that was going to be a good to me because they'd done the biopsies and
Yeah.
kind of found something there, and the PSA was rising to quite a substantial level.
Yes.
So I think a surveillance wasn't. And what I didn't also want, and I'm not sure whether Lammy goes through it or not, I didn't want the mental battle as well of knowing, right, it's still in there.
Yeah.
Is it starting to affect something else? Even if I have radio, if I have a surveillance, is it affecting something else? And that's why I made the decision. I don't want that mental man. I want, all right, if something goes wrong with the operation, then I'll know that. But at least I'll know it's out. So it's not affecting anything else that's in there. And I've been really, really, well, it's not, lucky's not the right word, but I had the operation, everything went according to plan, the rehab's gone according to plan, and I'm mentally back at it. But I'll tell you what it did do, before you go on to him, what it did do to me, which worried me more than the actual operation factor, it was change my character. You know, all of a sudden you become negative. You're looking for negative things about things as opposed to the positive things. And you change as a person.
That's interesting.
And that worried me, you know. I've never been like that at all. And all of a sudden I thought, well, I've got to change this. Or physically, I've got to change, and you can work physically and change things. But it's harder to change yourself as a person. I had to get that back again.
Yeah. And how long did it take between you deciding to have the operation and you actually having it? I mean, that sort of period of time in which kind of nothing's going on, and you want this thing to be done, and you want to move on, which is a difficult time.
They decided, right? It was in June, July last year. The doctor said that this is what your alternatives are, and I said, well, I'm going to have it out, right? And he said, when do you want to have it out? He said, it's not a desperate situation at the moment. I said, well, and as you know, I do a bit of after dinner speaking. I said, well, we've got work up till December the 3rd. He says, well, we'll do it on December the 4th then. So I said, right, okay. So we put December the 4th down, and that's fine, absolutely. And then I talked to my darling wife, and she said, well, if you have it December, how long's the rehab? Because that's going to ruin Christmas. And her birthday is December the 31st. And it's not, you know, it's going to throw all that. I said, no, you're right. So I got back in touch with Jim Cotto, who's the surgeon, great, superb man. And he said, well, let's do it in January then. I said, well, what day? He said, well, as early January as possible. So I said, right, January the 6th. Right, okay, so January the 6th came. End of December comes, and Jim gets COVID.
Oh no.
So they cancel the operation and put it back another week. So I had it.
It's interesting, Jeff. I would think a lot of people are thinking, cool, if I'd made that decision, I know it's difficult and to get bookings and everything else.
Yeah.
I'd want it out as soon as I can. I want to get this out.
Well, I did
and you sat with it for all that time.
Yeah, I did.
We spoke.
Yeah, we did.
And I said, listen, don't even wait. Because end of August, I went for a test, and
so let's stop you now. So, what your symptoms were the same?
Also,
urinating,
going to the 4 times.
Nothing
5 times.
happening.
No, I didn't. My flow was okay,
right.
But I was just going to the toilet all the time,
regularly. Yeah.
So we went to the doctor. I just went to and we had a test, and my PSA had gone up to 4.5, and he said you definitely should see someone. So I was lucky. We've been sort of helping a mate with prostate cancer for the last 12 years. So every year I have a checkup. So I knew that the oncologists and the people to get hold of. So I picked up the phone. I didn't even wait. He said it'll take about 3 weeks before you see anyone on the National Health. And I said, no, it was in my brain. I've got to see someone. So I went in, and same thing. They give you the options. I thought
you had the biopsies and so on.
They did the biopsy. Yeah. They couldn't see anything. They did all the tests.
Really?
And they did MRI scan. They couldn't see anything. They sort of noticed there was a little dark, but they couldn't. Wow. So they did a biopsy, but the big one. So, you know, it's not where they thought it was going to be. They just did a full one. And they found a Gleason, which was quite active in the prostate. It was about 4.55, and that's quite high. And I was going to just have radiotherapy. And then the day I started having radiotherapy in October, I had 25 days on the reel. I started taking hormone tablets because they said this will definitely give you 95% certainty that it'll kill it and everything. And I did that. But 6 months on those hormone tablets were terrible. You know, you blow up, your breasts tingle, and my breasts were getting bigger than my wife. I nearly borrowed her bra. I mean, it was really... But I mean, really, Aggers, it was just... I couldn't wait, as Jeff did.
Yeah.
I just wanted it done. And they gave me the option. You can have it out, and they gave us all the problems you do if we have it. And I think the big thing is you can have your prostate out and you can still have sex. In the old days, bang, there's no chance.
Yeah.
And
I must have been in the old days then.
Well, I don't know what happened there, but you...
Carry on. Bad luck, yeah.
And you know, they got so many different things now.
It's
to
not so
help you.
invasive. It's not such a huge operation that, I mean, sort of incision-wise and cut-wise.
Well, I didn't have heat.
I have keyhole. It's just keyhole surgery, you know.
yeah. And same when they did the biopsy. They don't let you out, you know, the hospital after the op. You know, you have a catheter on. And if you can't pee, then they won't let you out.
Yeah.
And the catheter was a bit sore. My God, pulling that thing out. Oh, my goodness.
I had 8 days, 8 days catheter, but I had my operation. I had my operation at 9:30 in the morning, and my wife picked me up at 5 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Home. But Mike, you talked about PSA, and yours went up to... What?
Went up to 5.
Well, I was on 31. My PSA was 31.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, I'm a 62-year-old man.
Yeah.
I've never had a PSA test.
Well, you stupid.
Should. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Book one today.
Get it done.
You can get it done easy.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the reason I haven't is because a doctor I did speak to said, yeah, but they're not very accurate, and you can have treatments like you, Alan, was saying that you had your high PSA and they couldn't find anything without going really. Well, what? Really. Obviously, they did keep looking, which is a great thing. But there's
the biopsy.
That's the kiddie. The biopsy.
The biopsy will tell you straight away.
Absolutely.
That's you can try. The PSA can be how you look at his.
Yeah.
I mean, Nigel Felton was having the same problem.
Yeah.
His was 32.
Yeah.
And I thought, what? I said, you better go and see.
Yeah.
And I got it to go and see my surgeon straight away, you know. And it worked out he was okay. But really, yes, the PSA doesn't tell you everything.
I'll be honest, the look you both gave me there when I said that, I'll get booked in. Because you both look quite horrified, actually.
When I talked to the Jim about it, and he said, "Have you got any children?" I said, yeah, I've got 2 daughters and a son. How old's your son? Well, he's just 40 odd now. Get him in. And he said, get him, and he's here actually today now. I brought him with me. He said, get him in. Over 40 years of age,
Start
they need to get
40.
their tests, their tests in. And PSA will give you an idea, but as Lammy says, it's the crux of it.
It's the starting point.
It is the starting point, correct, and then it's the biopsy. And the biopsy, if they can find things on that, then you know.
Were you doing
you
it
might be
every
free,
year
you
anyway?
might,
of course.
You might be all right.
Were you having your PSA test anyway, Alan? You said that you'd had some
every year. I do it because the great man, and we used to have a function every second year, raising money and just creating awareness. You know, we used to do it in the city, and the men didn't go. They just never. And I think it is a man. If you mention your anus or your penis, they get very sort of we can't talk
defensive,
about that.
It's
yeah,
defensive,
very defensive,
or
they feel I can't go that. I mean,
I guess there's also the fear of actually getting some bad news.
Well, you've got to take. The bad news is going to be.
It'd be worse news if you don't get it sorted out.
Goodbye to your family or go and get it sorted.
Yeah. There's no discussion about it at all, Aggie. Honestly, go and have, not just you, I'm just talking about everybody now, hopefully who's listening. Just go and have it done. Yep. It makes absolutely 100% sense.
And how are you now? As you both look great.
I am.
Side effects?
My rehab has been absolutely fantastic. They've looked after me. There was a constant phone call from the man who done the operation. How are you now? And look, I'll come and see you or come and see me in such and such a time. So they were brilliant. The aftermath of it all was brilliant. The rehab was absolutely superb. And I've got no pains now, and I'm back, as I said just here, I'm back positive again as opposed to negative.
Yeah, well, that's really good. And Alan, you mentioned sex. You're obviously fine. You are. You're well rehabilitated.
We had the radiotherapy, so I'm not off for my long run yet. So no.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
You may well return.
I may have to get one of those Indian snake charmers out there.
Or I think there are some tablets you can get these days over the counter.
But Ag is really, I go every 3 months now. I'll be doing this for the next year. So I have a test. The last test I had was 0.08, which is absolutely brilliant. So the next one is probably end of August, beginning of September.
Exactly the same.
So
I had mine 2 weeks ago. I'm just waiting for the results now, waiting for Jim to phone me back.
So a silly question then. If you both had your prostates completely removed.
No, I haven't.
No, you
have. You have only, right. You've got part of yours.
No, it's there. It's all there.
It's there.
Right.
But we've killed the cancer that was in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Mine's gone.
Yours is gone. So you shouldn't have any PSA reading at all, would you? Or
Well, there was the PSA
Or
reading was
residue.
right down.
Right.
But Jim said, I'd like to see it a little bit further down from where it is now. He says, and that will be a process. You know, where I've measured it from here, that's at that time. He said, there's a little bit more time. He says, I want to see a bit more. I have another blood test in 3 months' time. And says, and we'll do a different record on it. And I had it 2 weeks ago. And I'm just waiting for the result.
Well, I'll be honest.
I'm positive about that.
And I guess I think to all the listeners listening to this, we made you're going to go tomorrow. We want all the listeners
That's
who
the
haven't
point.
had a test,
I know.
please go and have a check.
Yeah. No, that's
Listen
the
to your
message.
wives, go and have a check.
It's brilliant that you two can come on and speak so easily and openly and freely and
Absolutely.
humorously about what is clearly a very serious subject. And yep, you've hit me, and I'm sure there's loads of people out there saying, okay, we'll just go and get this done. So thank you for that.